Hey there, this is Andrew Welch, and today I want to talk about the Microsoft Power Platform and specifically how all the pieces of that platform fit together. I think this is so important because the, the platform really is better together than the sum of its parts if we're using the capabilities of Power Apps and Power BI and Flow and the Common Data Service in Dynamics 365. This is just such an important topic for organizations who are looking to adopt the platform at scale. First, just a little bit about me. I know a lot of you, but I work as the Director of Business Applications at a company called Applied Information Sciences, AIS. Here's my contact information. You know where to find me. Runway View is my personal website where I write a lot about this topic, and I'm always eager to share business applications. And then, importantly, Andrew D. Welch, follow me on Twitter. But even more importantly than that is the Power Platform Adoption Framework. You can find it at runwayview.com/powerplatformaf. The adoption framework really has become the standard as to how large organizations are able to adopt Power Platform at enterprise scale. And I encourage you to go read that. It's a community-driven standard, so folks all over the world collaborate on that, and then it's published by AIS, my company. So digging right into it, let's start with what a lot of people already know about Power Platform. So when I talk to folks about Power Platform, what I hear a lot is, well, oh, that's the Microsoft thing where you can build these apps and anyone can build the apps. And yeah, I say, yeah, you're not wrong there. But so let's start with what you know. A couple Power Apps here. We've got one in the kind of the phone form factor, and then one in the browser, the tablet based. And at its simplest level, yeah, these are Power Apps. But there's there's actually three different flavors of Power Apps. And no, if you know the application, if you know the platform, I'm not talking about model-driven or Canvas. I'm really talking about where the apps come from and where they're used. So the first flavor of Power Apps, if you will, those are the custom mobile and web apps. These are applications that organizations build for themselves, whether it's someone out in the business building the app or whether it's a citizen developer who's building the app for their use, or maybe IT is building that application, or they're working with a partner to build the app instead. But these fundamentally, they're apps that are built internally to the organization, and they really are meant to solve a use case specific to that business or to that organization. The second flavor of Power Apps, I call them mission-focused COTS apps, commercial off-the-shelf apps. Microsoft calls these ISV apps. But basically what's happening here is that you've got a software company, you've got a software vendor out in the market, and they've recognized in the market that there is a need for an app that does a specific thing. So maybe they recognize that there's a need for an app that is going to help folks keep track of their travel reservations. So they build that app using Power Apps on the Power Platform, and they put that app out in the Microsoft App Source. Think of it kind of like an app store for Power Platform. They put that app out there, and other organizations can go grab that and deploy it into their Power Platform environment. They might have to pay for it, but that app is available there for other folks to use. And then the third category of Power Apps, and I think that a lot of folks are really surprised by this, those are the Dynamics 365 applications, specifically the ones that we refer to as Dynamics for Customer Engagement, Dynamics for Dynamics CE. And what a lot of folks, I think, don't realize yet is that Microsoft has replatformed these so that they are essentially large, just really big Power Apps that Microsoft happens to have built. And they play well with the other Power Apps. So if you're an organization out there that's using Dynamics or has been using Dynamics for some time, Dynamics 365, you might not know it, but you're already using Power Apps because those D365 applications, that's exactly what they are. Now, all of these apps sit on top of what we call the Common Data Service, or CDS, and I think that that's really where the magic of this platform comes into play. What happens here is that the data that all of these apps use, that data lives inside of CDS, and then it's reusable across all of the other apps that an organization has deployed to that CDS environment. So the example that I really like to use, actually, is one of geographic place. So think about all the times that we've developed an app, or maybe it's just a spreadsheet. So it could be a spreadsheet or a SharePoint app or an Access database, or something in a completely third-party application, or it could be a big, a big line of business application, something that your HR system or whatever. But so often when we build those things, whether it's a small, simple spreadsheet or a big enterprise first-party application, we create a data set. So in a spreadsheet, we'd be thinking of a column, right? We create a data set to represent subnational units. So I'm talking states in the US, or provinces in Canada, or autonomies in Spain, counties in Sweden. The list goes on and on. But we're basically representing these subnational units from a geographic or a political perspective. So in the United States, there's 50 states plus 4 or 5 other jurisdictions like the District of Columbia or Puerto Rico or the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, et cetera, et cetera. So we build that data into the application, and we do this again and again and again in so many of the spreadsheets that we create, so many of the Access databases, so many of the SharePoint apps and other types of applications. We create that data set over and over and over again. It's very, very common to do, and you see it all the time. Now, think about, though, the state, the American state of West Virginia. Very often we see that data represented as WV, which is its postal abbreviation, WV, WVA, W.VA, W.V. West Virginia, one word, 2 words. There's all these different variations to represent what fundamentally is the same piece of data, right? So then we have to figure out how to get all those different ways of representing that data to talk with one another. And that's been a challenge, not because it's a challenge that we don't have an answer to, but it's a challenge that's more of a nuisance that's existed for a very long time in the world of data modeling. So what we do with the Common Data Service is we just create that data set once. We create that table, or that in Common Data Service we call it an entity. But again, if you're thinking in simple Excel terms, you can think of it as a column. We create that data once for those subnational units, and then every app that we have living on this database can reuse that data without having to write custom integrations or connectors or ETLs or anything like that. So the example that I've used is pretty simple, but imagine if we repeated the trick across all of the data that we have. So rather than just a common source of data for states, we have a common source of data, a single source of truth, if you will, for all of our people who work here, all of our customers that we serve, all of the products and services that we provide, every facility, every desk, every computer, every iPhone, et cetera, that we are keeping and maintaining track of via these apps. Well, we create that common data set in the Common Data Service, we secure it, and then we make it available on an app-by-app basis so that data can be seamlessly shared between applications without having to do a lot of custom work. And then we take and we point Power BI at this Power Platform as well, and Power BI lets us ingest and manipulate all of this data and build these really beautiful, richly compelling, interactive ways to interact with and surface that data and really get to that data within our organizations. Well, Power BI, it turns out, also uses these 280 plus, and I actually say that there are many more. This was just at my last count, but uses these out-of-the-box data connectors that Microsoft has created, not just to Microsoft services, like you see here, SharePoint, for example, but to third-party services as well. So I love Todoist from a task management perspective, or even Microsoft competitors like Salesforce. There's out-of-the-box data connectors that allows us to point Power BI at those data sources and then to mash that data up with what we happen to own inside of the Common Data Service. And I shouldn't neglect to say we can also point that, of course, at data services that exist in Microsoft Azure. Now, all of these out-of-the-box data connectors, and by the way, we can build custom data connectors if there isn't one already there, but all these out-of-the-box data connectors point back at Power Apps. So you can actually build Power Apps that use not only the data inside of Common Data Service, or pointing Power Apps at, say, SharePoint or at data services that exists in Azure, but we can also point Power Apps at these hundreds of other third-party data sources and third-party applications. So we can use really Power Apps as that transactional layer where users are transacting the data and they're using their applications to execute business processes, or we can think of Power BI as that visualization and that data ingestion and manipulation layer. So, and then finally, I'll point out Microsoft Flow is a little bit difficult to draw in a diagram here, but it's sort of like the all-powerful force that ties and binds the galaxy together. In this case, Power Platform. Think of Microsoft Flow as that connective thread that we pull throughout the entire platform to automate activities and automate business processes and really connect what we're doing in Power Platform with what we're doing across the Microsoft stack. So think in SharePoint or in your Office applications or in Microsoft Teams. So let's visualize this a little bit of a different way. Let's throw all the pieces up into the air and sort them out again. So we'll begin with the common data service. That's that single source of truth where we've modeled our data once and we're making it available to all these applications. So now we're building these applications and deploying these applications on top of the common data service. So you see there's a custom travel app that someone built, and maybe we're using Dynamics 365 for sales, and maybe we have an app for case management, or I say this app that Ray built, and that's actually a true story. I worked with an organization once that really wanted to replace this app. They called it Ray's List. Well, it turns out that Ray's List was not an app, it was a spreadsheet, but that spreadsheet had tracked thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of data for that organization over a period of many years. So now with Power Apps and Power Platform, we can actually put the tools in Ray's hands to, rather than keeping this in a spreadsheet, to actually build or have a colleague build a really compelling app experience for Ray there. And then we plug these apps into the third party or even the other Microsoft applications using these out-of-the-box data connectors. And finally, we wrap the entire thing inside of Power BI to create that really rich, beautiful, interactive, compelling data consumption, visualization, and surfacing of data within all of our applications across the platform. So that's Microsoft Power Platform in a nutshell, how all the pieces fit together. It's an incredibly powerful platform for building not just simpler apps that maybe your users within the organization, we call them citizen developers, not just that they might build, but also for building very complex line of business applications that many thousands of users might go on to touch. So I hope this was useful for you. I'll continue to update this as Power Platform evolves. It certainly is evolving every day, but we're just really excited about its capability and its potential to transform and modernize the way that organizations conduct their business in the cloud. So thanks for keeping up with me, and I look forward to your suggestions and your input. Take care.